Welcome to the Yarra Valley Living Centre and to the Living Well series and our third episode with Jude Pemell. I think you remember in the previous two we spoke about resilience, and now we're going to speak to Jude about what do you do when you really have been stretched possibly to your limits. Welcome back, Judy. Welcome back. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is that how you would describe it? Stretched to your limits?
I think that's a good description, Morning. I haven't often felt that. When I worked in theatre in my youth, I did feel that very often. But yes, certainly in terms of my therapeutic career, I didn't often, well, that was the only time I felt stretched to my limit.
Yeah, so that's how much resilience you've got, that it took working on probably the most emotionally challenging area in Australia. And I believe that your services were terminated and that's why you left. Otherwise, you'd probably still be there.
Well, I don't know. That was the beginning of 2015. It was, I think, late February, early March. And, 95% of the staff working for my company were terminated. And the other stakeholder staff were massively let go of, were terminated as well, which left the refugees without very much support at all.
Yeah, because I understand you were providing the emotional and mental support, and now that doesn't exist.
No. It ceased at that point.
So we can all just imagine what it must be like after you've painted such a picture in the previous two interviews. So, Judy, then did you come back to Sydney, which is where you're based?
I did. I came back to Sydney. I think I may have been sent to Darwin for a little while, and then I was sent to Villawood, where I finished the end of my contract with that company, and we were given about 2 weeks' notice of this sort of mass termination that would occur, and that was that.
So as they say, I mean, in hindsight, it's not what we want to happen, but there's usually benefit in whatever happens. And would you say that it was probably good because it was probably time for you to look after yourself a little bit?
It's a double-edged sword, and it would have been, I think what would have been ideal is if that whole scenario had been able to finish in a much cleaner, more humane, more constructive manner. But it did not. And like so many of my colleagues, we had to cope with that far less than ideal situation. And you can imagine how many relationships we had with the refugees.
Yeah.
And we formed, well, many of us did, quite deep bonds.
Yeah, because it's a loving and caring role. How could you not when you're loving and caring at a time of need like that?
Yes, and, they're beautiful people.
And Judy, previously you spoke about moral outrage. How have you managed that? That's one particular area I'd like to explore with you, because I think many of us feel that from time to time. So what did you do to manage that moral outrage?
Well, it's funny because when you said those words, I began to feel my blood pressure rise.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. I can feel the heat, It's very, very difficult to manage. And it was accompanied by grief. And after I came back, I was working for another company, and I went to do some training with an American psychologist by the name of Vicki Reynolds. And I did a week's training with her. She came out to Australia, and she's an amazing, really out-of-the-box woman who's spent her entire professional life working with marginalised people, with different groups of marginalised people, the homeless, refugees, incarcerated people, domestic violence, all the areas that I have been working in for 30 years. I've worked in all the same areas that she has. And what she was telling us, I told her about what I'd been doing and how it had left me feeling, or my response to that, that 4 years of doing that work. And she was talking to us about burnout. Now, I don't feel I've ever actually been burned out. People talk about it a lot in my profession, and they also talk a lot about vicarious trauma. Now, I don't believe I've actually ever experienced either. And I've worked in the pointiest areas of of that context. But what she said was that when you're working in an area where the government or the powers that be in your country are destroying the human rights of the people you're working with, or are undermining their human rights, and you are paid to support those people, you unconsciously take responsibility for what is happening to them. Now, this made complete sense to me, because I knew that in some strange way or perhaps quite not strange, that I had done this, and I felt probably others had too. But she absolutely, when she sort of spelled it out, it made complete sense to me. And she said, this is what causes burnout. And she said, interestingly, she said, there is no such thing as vicarious trauma. And she said, it's just this other situation. And she said, we do not get traumatised by listening to the terrible stories of our clients. We don't get vicariously traumatised from that. And I never had. And I've listened to the worst stories, believe me, year in, year out. But I always maintain, I didn't take it home with me, and I always was able to maintain this position of being able to completely be with others in their pain and, in what was really happening for them at the moment, at the time of being in my office, and being able to hold that space, because I felt so much compassion and empathy for them in that situation. And so what she was saying to me was this form of abuse that is perpetrated on the clients, we can't do anything about that as helpers. We're helpless to do anything about what the powers or the authorities that are doing that. We can't stop it. And so there's a certain, there's a certain bond that develops between you and that person, because you understand what they're going through. You cannot stop it. And so for us, we have to find clever ways of supporting them through that experience. And I think, I also mentioned last time, I think I mentioned Viktor Frankl, the German psychiatrist.
Yes.
And, I'd read his book, decades before I went into the detention system. But I read it again about 5 times while I was working in the system. And there's because he was in the camps in Germany, in the concentration camps, as a prisoner of, as a Jew. And he worked out how to survive, how to give meaning to every day. And how he did that was that he thought about being reunited with his wife, because they'd only just got married.
Yeah.
They were barely finished their honeymoon when they were taken to the camps and separated. And he never saw her again. But every day he just thought about her and about being reunited with her, because he, obviously, for all the obvious reasons. And that kept him going. And so when he saw somebody else fall into apathy, they wouldn't get up at 5 a.m. to go on the work gang. They would stay exactly where they were. They would have wet themselves. They would have whatever. They wouldn't even get up to go to the toilet. And from somewhere in a hidden pocket somewhere, they'd produce a cigarette and they'd smoke it. And that was the sign, I have given up completely, because they never smoked their cigarette ration, even if they were smokers, because they could swap the cigarettes for food. With the guards, they'd get a little bit of extra soup or something, another piece of bread. So they didn't ever smoke their cigarettes until that point. And when he saw someone do that, he would go and speak to them.
Yeah.
And Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher, contemporary philosopher, he said, I'm quoting here, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And it's what I think, for me, that is about. It's about having the heart to bear what you're going through.
So, Judy, what was the why for you? What kept you going?
Well, what kept me going was, I think, the desire to find some sort of meaning in what was happening, and to find some kind of, now this is going to sound a bit odd, but some kind of justice. And I had begun that when I was working on Manus Island, that I would spend hours when I was on the ship that we lived on. I'd be one of the many people sitting in a corridor with a laptop and a set of headphones, listening to music and typing away. People would do their emails. We could not always get reception, but occasionally we could. And so that was when I started writing down my experiences, putting it down. And so when I left, this became a very important, because I had put together a Peace for Life performance, and that was performed in Sydney. You came.
I think I was there. It was amazing. It was brilliant.
So a lot of industry people had come to those performances and they said, these stories must be out there. Because at that point they weren't. You know, the media was gagged. We were gagged. I faced 2 years prison for writing those stories. I couldn't have my name on anything. I couldn't be identified anywhere. And so once we were all terminated, I thought, okay, now I'm going to do something with this. And so my pursuit of some creatives to work with me began, and I just sort of networked and put the word out, and I'd been working with some very good actors on that production you saw.
Very good.
Yeah.
I thought it was really those people. They were very, very convincing and they carried the story so powerfully.
That's it. They really did. And some of them, you know, had refugee backgrounds themselves, or their parents did. But I was so lucky to get such professional actors from all those different cultural backgrounds. It wasn't easy, but, you know, networking with theatricals and creatives again and starting to find a way to bring this to life in a mainstream way became my occupation for several years. And that was a very important thing for me to do because I had this, I was trying to give meaning to what I'd done. And so as fate would have it, a director, an award-winning director came on board. And he was a person of Tamil background who's done very, very well in the creative world here in Australia. And he comes from a refugee. His parents came here as refugees. And so he really wanted to do it. He wanted to work with me and develop the work, and we did that. And he just helped incredibly. He said to me, no, you need to apply for this scholarship to do a playwriting course, year's course in playwriting with Playwriting Australia and the National Theatre of Parramatta. And I said, okay. So he told me how to apply. I applied and I got it. So that was great because I was in this writers group for a year. And
giving meaning to what you'd experienced. So
yes.
that has no doubt helped the healing.
Oh, tremendously. And so I continued to work on this play. We got some creative developments. The theatre company was very interested in what we were doing. So they gave us the money for creative. Several companies gave us money. Theatre companies gave us money or gave us premises or gave us something. And so when you put all those things together, you know, you can pay your actors and you can rehearse and you can do these creative developments. And that was fantastic. It was, you know, it was great for me. I rewrote that piece about I don't know how many times. And so that went on but what that did, about the time that we were finishing up that year's playwriting scholarship that I did, Stephen Sewell, who's Australia's probably foremost playwright and screenwriter, came to give us a masterclass. And that masterclass he gave us so spoke to me. And he said that, you know, we were socialising, we were chatting all day, and then we all went to a play reading of somebody in our group afterwards. And he stayed for the play reading. We were chatting again, and he said to me, what had I written about? And I told him. He said, I want to see your play. And so I invited him. He didn't come. He's a very busy man because he was running the writing course. He was head of writing for performance at NIDA. But he and I really kind of clicked. And I had further contact with him over time. And he said to me, why don't you need to come to NIDA and you'll get all the skills you need. And so, he brought me into NIDA. Well, I applied. I had to go through the normal application process and have an interview and all that. So then I spent, almost a year and a half at NIDA, and that was phenomenal.
And what were you doing there?
I was doing a Master Fine Arts Writing for Performance.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
So, of course, we had to fulfil all of the academic rigour requirements. And I did a thesis on meditation, and my master's thesis was on the link between meditation and creativity.
Oh, why are you telling me that? We're just ending our interview. That's another one we can talk about, meditation and creativity.
Now, that is a subject that just opens everything up. That is fascinating. It was fascinating to do. I did my own action research with people who've meditated for around 40 years and who have been lifelong professional creatives. So that was really intriguing. But all of this, getting back, now I'm very much back into the creative sphere and around creatives a lot of the time. And that we know that creativity has a huge function in healing us psychologically and emotionally and spiritually. And, I could talk at great length about this.
That's another one. Yeah, because we have come to our time, but that's definitely another one.
Yes, but getting back into writing but having all that assistance to develop my imagination and to develop creatively, it really has been wonderful.
It sounds like it's been like a gift. And don't you often find that's the way we give everything, and then somehow we're given something so that we can make use of our experiences?
Absolutely. But, of course, we have to be willing when a gift is offered to take it. So we have to know how to receive as well. And, I love that saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And very often in life, we will go through a very dark and difficult passage in order to be ready to be taught whatever it is we need to know. And when I look back over my life, particularly my work in therapy, it has been about me learning to open my heart and becoming a much deeper person. And so I think, that is where the meaning is.
And I read a beautiful saying. It says, wisdom comes to those who serve. So it's almost as if all that you went through, now you can serve because of that journey. It can be very painful. It can be, as I started by saying, it can stretch us, but then it's beautiful how then we can serve through that and help others.
And we're here to be stretched. I mean, I believe this. I want to be stretched.
Yeah.
I want to be challenged.
Yeah.
That gives my life meaning.
Mm.
I love it.
Be careful, Judy. What are you calling on yourself? Mm.
Yeah. So, I mean, suffering in and of itself is meaningless. But the way we respond to our own or other people's suffering in life is what gives it meaning. And so we always have the freedom to choose how we respond to any situation, and that's what's important, I believe. We always have that choice. And if I had, you know, a penny for every time I've said that to a client, I'd probably be a wealthy woman by now.
Yeah, right.
That we may not have a choice in a situation, but we do have a choice as to how we respond to the situation. We always have that choice.
So beautiful that you've come back to creativity, which is,
yes,
you know, where I knew you from many, many years ago. I think we've known each other over 30, 35 years. And you were very much in the creative world at that time, and now you've come back to it. And I think we look forward to seeing what's going to be coming from, you know, all that you're learning and how you can make meaning and bring to people, you know, some of those experiences in a meaningful way.
Yes, thank you.
So would you like to lead us again into some reflection? Do you feel?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So, so much was shared today. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's lovely to reflect on these things. So thank you. Okay, so we're going to have a meditation now. So I'm going to just share a few thoughts that can take us into our creativity through just lulling ourselves into a meditative state. And so letting go of the world, letting go of the thoughts. I bring my awareness into the heart of my being, into the center of my being. Letting go of physical sensation. And the environment around me. I come into the stillness and quietness of just being. Here where there is no sound. This place where I can be safe and completely myself. And I connect with who I am. Sinking deeply to this peace and stillness. Completely held. In the womb. And I allow myself to stay as long as I like in this special place inside. Separated from the world. The seat of creativity and resilience and compassion.
Beautiful stillness, sitting in the state of compassion. Thank you so much, Jude. Of course, you've
I have to say, where I am, everything went so still and quiet.
Yeah, you took us there.
Even the traffic seemed to calm down outside.
Yeah, I don't really want to come back into sound. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I think it's good to close quietly and let people go with this lovely feeling into whatever you have to do. And if you've got time to sit longer, just sit there. And we'll welcome Jude back another time to talk about creativity, meditation and creativity. Yeah. Thank you so much once again.
And neuroscience, because a lot of this is from the neuroscience, and it is such a fascinating thing to explore.
With you. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jude.
Thanks,
See
Morty.
you next time.
Thanks to everyone else.
Thanks to everyone for joining us.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye for now.